Hi everyone, Donna here with Bookkeeping Made Simple. This is the Bookkeeping Made Simple podcast, and on this show I generally talk about anything to do with business that I can think of. What's new in the news, what is, I don't talk about politics, but I will talk about policies, and it's because I don't want to be seen as partisan. And basically what's going on in the financial news, along with what you as a business owner need to know as what's going on in the financial world. Today, however, I want to talk about scams. My friend Todd Maister out in California, he's a business lender. He is the owner of the Maister Group. Wonderful guy. He just sent me an email alerting us to scams. And that's kind of what triggered this video. I'm also sending this out to all of my followers on email. Because this is just so important, and it's on my blog on my website, mysimplebookkeeping.com. What this is that let me get back to my email. What the first thing that he said is that there are emails going out about an EIDL debt forgiveness program. The problem is there's no such thing as an EIDL debt forgiveness program. That's EIDL. That is one of the programs that's been suspended for a little bit, but I think they have finally started working through applications again at the Treasury. Excuse me. But there is no such thing as an EIDL debt forgiveness program. If you received an EIDL grant, there's no debt forgiveness on that. So, and the other part of it is coming from a fraudulent email address. The email address that they're using to send this out is answerdesk.sba.gov. That sounds official, right? At USA.com. That's not official. The correct email address would have been answerdesk@sba.gov. But that would have involved spoofing a government website, and that's felonious, and this is bad enough. This may well be a felony as well. So if you receive an email purporting to be from the SBA, or for that matter from any other government agency, usually what I do is I say check the from email address. Now sometimes they will spoof them, so it will look like it really is coming from the government. All government emails addresses end with .gov. You may receive one, but they will never be a cold email. This kind of information is pushed out through official channels. And by that, I mean, they will push this out to the accountants. They will push it out to lawyers. They will push it out on the government websites, but they will not send cold emails about this. The reason I wanted to bring this up is a lot of people will go on the website, they will respond to the email, and now their information has been captured by the scammer, and it's really, really easy for them then to harvest such important personal information as your date of birth, your social security number, your mailing address, the big one is your social. Now you have to be very, very guarded with your social, and it will look like you're applying for debt forgiveness. Again, very, very seldom does this go out as a cold email. In fact, I believe you have to request to be opted in. You have to go to the government website and request to be opted in ever. And that includes if you're going through Navient or any student loan processors. You have to opt in to receive those emails. And even then, they're very, very careful about that. Another one that I hear of a lot, in fact, I've received these scams, is have someone purporting to be from the IRS who will call from what looks like a Washington, D.C. number. And they will say, oh, it's February of 2024. You owe money for your 2023 taxes, and so you need to pay me over the phone right now. Lots of people fall for this. It's really sad how many people fall for this. This is worse than the Nigerian prince that's never given me millions of dollars. What they're looking for, once again, they're looking to get you to panic. They sound official. So number one, understand the Internal Revenue Service will never call you. Okay? They will send you letters. The way the IRS, their process is, they will send you a letter. If it is a letter that requires you to respond, so that would be something like you owe money, they will send you a few letters, and if you don't respond or call them or make a payment or whatever it is being requested, file a return, then they will send an agent to your door, to your place of business if it's about business, to your home if this is about home. But their point of contact first is the letter, and by a letter I mean a standard letter. This is actually an IRS envelope. It's got other things. It's got a return address, a return envelope in it, self-addressed stamped envelope. But just so you can see it, this is what a letter from the IRS. This is the envelope they come in. You notice that it's a special window. We don't see these. This is not a standard envelope as far as the window. This is something that is specifically for the IRS. And then over here, you will see that it is franked. And the franking, this says it is first-class mail authorized by the IRS. By the way, government does not pay postage. That's for us. But because it's an official government business, it will say it is first-class mail authorized by the Internal Revenue Service. Okay, so we've got the IRS here. We've got, it says official business in the upper corner, and then on the letter itself, which I don't want to show you because it is client letter, but on the letter itself, it will have the IRS logo and the name of the person that they're trying to reach, as well as the return address, okay? So it's very, very obvious it's coming from the IRS. I always chuckle because even my mail carrier is like, I don't even want to touch these letters. So if you don't respond to the letters, and I think they send a series of 5, then they will actually send an agent to your door. It is on you to respond to them before the agent comes to the door. You don't ever want to get this to that point. But just so you know, if they're going to do an enforcement action against you, they will send letters, and then they will send a human being. They do not call you. It's too easy to scam people with a phone call. They never call you that, even if they were going to call you, okay, which they're not, they are not going to call you and ask for immediate payment. Every time you need to call the IRS, if it is for business, you may make your payment through EFTPS. If it is personal, you can go to irs.gov/payments and make any payments there. Either way, they will be tied to your EIN if you're a business or your social security number if you're an individual. They're never going to say, send me gift card numbers over the phone. Another one that I've heard about, and we've played with the scammers on this one, is when they called and they said, we're from the Social Security Administration. Again, it did actually look like a Washington, D.C. number. So I answered it. For 2 reasons. One is I do business in D.C. And 2, one of my sisters lives in the D.C. area. So I answered it. I was like, just in case, maybe it's my sister and she's like calling from a landline somewhere in the district. Or, maybe it could be a government agency. I don't know. But I went ahead and answered it, and they said, oh, this is the Social Security Administration. We are calling to let you know that your Social Security number has been canceled. Number one, they don't cancel Social Security numbers. Don't fall for this. Number 2, they don't call you. They send official correspondence through the U.S. mail. So this is 100% a scam. Be aware of it. And then I wanted to go over some of the dirty dozen. And I have to put my glasses on for this because I am just not that good at seeing. Okay. Some of the bogus tax avoidance strategies. Now, I preface this by saying it is not okay to evade income tax. It is, however, perfectly legal to avoid it. And there's a number of ways to do that. However, Some of the bogus tax avoidance schemes include syndicated conservation easements. A conservation easement is a restriction on the use of real property. In other words, this is where you have granted, for multiple reasons, someone to access part of your property. For example, my parents have an easement on their property. They have several acres in western Kentucky, and there is an easement there because there had to be power lines through their property. There's an easement at the back, partly because there was a pre-existing railroad track. So there's an easement there as well. So there's legitimate reasons to have an easement. However, taxpayers may claim a charitable contribution deduction for the fair market value of a conservation easement, conservation meaning for charity, if the transfer meets Internal Revenue Code Section 170 requirements. However, some people are syndicating these conservation easement transactions to give an investor an opportunity to claim the charitable contribution deduction and the tax savings that exceed the amount that the investor put in. You can never claim a charitable contribution of more than what you actually gave. There's a number of ways to claim if you did actually grant an easement on your property and you want to claim that for charity. There's a lot of things we have to do for that. It's not something I can just say, oh, it's a charitable contribution. I have to have a survey made. I have to, determine the fair market value of that property, and then I have to, it's not something I can do in a real quick 30-minute tax return. Okay. Also, these so-called easements will provide high fees for the promoters. And really what it is an attempt to game the system. They are dramatically inflating your tax deductions as if the IRS isn't smart enough to figure all this out. So keep in mind, if somebody gives you an idea of saving money on taxes and it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Another one would be micro-captive insurance arrangements. So that is an insurance company. It's also called a small captive. An insurance company whose owners elect to be taxed on the captive investment income only. So it doesn't have any of the hallmarks of legitimate insurance. This is something they came up with just to try to avoid income tax. Abusive microcaptives include schemes, again, they lack the attributes of real insurance, and so it includes implausible risks. I do not need insurance on my house in the event of an asteroid. That is, the likelihood of that happening is so vanishingly small, I really don't need insurance on that. Failure to match genuine business needs. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means that if you have a business and you have exposure, and if you have a business, you have exposure, you need to look at what you need in your business. For example, in my business, my office is in my home. I'm very open about that. Eventually, I'm going to move into a real office, I suppose. But my office currently is in my home, so I don't have exposure to go to an office. I don't have customers come here, so I don't need to be insured against those risks. I have very little in the way of equipment and furniture. Most of my equipment, if I lost all of my computer equipment, it would cost me less than $1,000 to replace it all. Or maybe $2,000. So I don't have a lot of exposure. Most of my exposure is involved with E&O, or errors and omissions insurance, also called professional liability insurance. And it's very minimal. So I don't need someone coming in and saying, well, we'll insure your house, we'll insure the special room in your home that you work for, we're going to insure your computer equipment for $20,000. I don't have that much computer equipment. Even with all the computers I have, I don't have that much. I have a $600 computer, a $600 laptop, a $300 printer, and 3 monitors at about $200 a piece. And a computer stand that's about $100. maybe 200. That's it. I don't need $20,000 worth of insurance. So, and a lot of times it is unnecessarily duplicating the taxpayer's existing policies. So, again, if I have professional liability insurance, I don't need another policy that basically is professional liability under another name. So again, you have to be very, very aware. Work with a reputable insurance company, one whose name you know, and be very, very cautious about. Oh, and the other thing is non-arm's length pricing. Arm's length transactions mean that you don't have any relationship to the person you're purchasing the insurance from. Now, I just purchased a life insurance policy from a friend. However, they're not my sister. She's not my sister. Her husband's not my brother. I am not related to them in any way. So it's an arm's length transaction. We're friends, but we are not family. Okay, we're not related. Likewise, if I have a live-in boyfriend that we're not married, that gets a little bit more murky, but I would treat any transaction between myself and him as not arm's length because we actually do live together as husband and wife, whether or not there's a marriage license involved or not. Okay, that's a hypothetical. So you have to be very careful. And like I said, if it's a non-arm's length, and I have purchased, to be fair, I've purchased insurance from my brother. But even though it was not an arm's length transaction, it was a transaction between related parties, he was an agent for a very well-known, very reputable insurance company, so I wasn't worried about it. So you have to be mindful of that. Do not worry about, you do need to be worried about excessive premiums. You should be able to shop around and make sure that the premiums are appropriate for your situation. Also, there are evidently schemes involving international elements. Now, I don't like doing anything to do with international tax. It's a pain in the neck. But this particular one involves Maltese retirement arrangements, why they chose Malta for this, and digital assets. All of this through Malta. The Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, or FATCA, plays a key part in combating tax evasion. Again, you can't evade taxes. You can avoid them, but you can't evade them. This is about tax evasion by U.S. persons holding accounts offshore. There's nothing illegal about holding accounts offshore. By the way, I lived in Germany. When I lived in Germany, I had a checking account. Didn't have a lot of money in it because we were broke, but I had a checking account when I lived in Germany. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if you do have financial assets outside of the United States, you are required to report them to the IRS, generally on your tax return. So this includes banks, but also investment accounts, brokers and insurance companies, and so on and so forth. Anything that's financial that is outside of the United States, you're still required to report all of this on your tax return. However, there's people that will say, go ahead and you can retain your U.S. citizenship, but you can have a bank account in, the IRS is saying Maltese, so I guess Malta. And then they'll say the IRS can't find this. That's not true. We have treaties with foreign countries that require them to report foreign assets held by U.S. citizens to the U.S. government. There's no getting away from the IRS. Even if you go to Russia, there's no getting away from the IRS. So be aware, the IRS can track this, and they will, and you will get in trouble. Again, it's with the too good to be true. And they are abusing this tax treaty that we have with Malta. It also has to do with digital assets, so that would be crypto, and particularly crypto and NFTs. So a lot of promoters will say this is not traceable. I think in the early days of crypto, that was actually the case, but that is no longer the case today. So you have to be aware that yes, if you're a U.S. citizen and you are subject to U.S. tax law, the government can and will and does track everything you do. Do not try to game the system this way. So you do have to report any income you receive from digital assets. Usually those are in the form of capital gains. And that means when you sell your digital asset, especially if it's the ones that I'm thinking of, they've got a couple listed, but the ones I'm thinking of particularly are Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. It's okay to, just like any other security, you can buy them and hold them, and that's fine. You don't have to declare them. We don't tax unrealized capital gains. That's a time. So you can buy cryptocurrency and you can hold it. And when you sell it, you have to report any gains or losses on the sale. Do not think that the government can't track this down. All of this is being reported to the IRS. If you have NFTs, it's the same deal. You can buy them and you can hold them, but once you sell them, you have to report the sale to the IRS and it will be taxed as a capital gain. If you are somehow paid in digital assets, you have to report that as part of your wages. Okay, so that actually goes on your Schedule C, and if you got any sort of digital asset by gift, you have to report that as a gift. And that's what you have to do with that. Again, don't think that the IRS won't be able to catch you, because they will. So just be aware that there's a lot of fraud. The IRS every year puts out their dirty dozen, and these are just a few of the scams that they're talking about on that. Be aware, particularly with email. If you receive anything from email that is purported to be from the IRS, you need to make sure that you are verifying the email address, that it actually is coming from, and it should be something you're expecting, by the way. The only time I ever get emails is if I've signed up for them. And I did, in fact, when they were talking about student loan forgiveness, I wanted to know what's going on. I have student loans. So I did sign up with Navient, and I said, I want to be alerted, and through the Department of Education as well. I said, I want to be alerted on this. And so I gave them my permission and my email address. So I do receive emails on those. But that is an opt-in. They never send you cold emails. And I can always verify the sender. So you want to make sure, again, they will always end with .gov. If you're receiving an email that purports to be from the government and it ends in .com, it is a fraudulent email. Be very careful about this. And if you do receive, or you're the victim of fraud, feel free to let me know. If nothing else, I can give you the information to report it to the IRS or to the Financial Crimes Network, FinCEN, so that even if they can't get your money back, they can help someone else not be defrauded. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.